The one they call the Big Daddy Kane is here as the party animal, sex symbol, soloist, vocalist, microphone miracle, here to react, attack. As a matter of fact, I bring forth a sudden impact. Wanna say knick-knack, paddywhack, give Kane a microphone, and all the other MCs are going.
At the Grand Concourse 149th Street station in the Bronx, graffiti writers gather at what they call the writer's bench.
What's good, what's good? Live from the writer's bench. I'm your man Kill here with two of my soldiers, Evan Beezo. What's going on, y'all?
Peace, peace.
Peace.
Shout out to the soldier Vic who ain't with us tonight. You know what I mean? Always in our thoughts, always here as usual. But tonight we chopping it up about hip-hop remakes and is that cool? And just for cats who may not know, you know, a couple of years ago, Elzhi from Slum had done a tribute to Nas's Illmatic and called it Elmatic. And then a couple of days ago, Skyzoo and Ant-Man Wonder did a tribute to Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt called An Ode to Reasonable Doubt. And when I saw it, I kind of felt some kind of way like is this the new trend? Is this the new thing? Like, even with, you know, Elzhi's Elmatic, I was like, yo, dudes just not have nothing else to rap about that we start doing tribute albums. I'm like, is next year somebody gonna do a ode to Ready to Die and an ode to Strictly Business? And, you know, so just wanted to chop it up with the bench to see how cats felt about these hip-hop remakes. And I mean, is that cool? You know, I know on one of our previous shows we talked about starting new rules for hip-hop and everything like that, and obviously that this is a route that people are starting to go, but, you know, just wanted to open it up and chop it up about that. So, yo, Ed, why don't you set us off, man? How do you feel about cats redoing a classic album? How did you feel about the Elzhi Elmatic?
Well, for me, to be honest, I think the Elzhi joint was pretty dope. I liked it. He had a band, he had a live band that did the production for it. Because he was redoing Illmatic, you know, he wasn't spitting, you know, Nas's verses, but, you know, because of that and the fact that it was a classic album, he realized he had to step his rhyme game up. So I like it, man. I mean, I had some time to think about it. At first, my first thought was, what? He's doing, you know, I mean, they remaking albums, but when I look at it in a different light, I kind of see it like, well, it's two things to it. One, we came up in the sample, we're sample kids, so we came up in, you know, in history of sampling from jazz. Maybe we got these younger cats now sampling from hip hop, which is kind of weird, still kind of weird to me. But the thing I do like about it is they're redoing like good hip hop shit. So say for instance, a cat that's maybe 13 may not know nothing about Illmatic until one of these, you know, younger cats go and redo Illmatic or redo, you know, Reasonable Doubt, whatever the case. And, you know, hopefully like it did us and we became diggers, hopefully it'll send them on a journey, not just on that project, but it'll send them to the source. So in a sense, I can see it as how it could kind of like, it might be a good seed that's planted. I mean, you know, it also could be laziness. I mean, I guess I can look at it on two sides of the fence. It could be laziness. You might have a cat that's really not that good, and they may use like doing a classic album as a you know, as a scapegoat for the fact that, you know, they're lacking in talent and ability. So I guess I can see it on both sides. I'm not really necessarily mad at it right now because the only two I've seen is Illmatic and Reasonable Doubt, and hopefully for the younger generation, they'll listen to the ones that are out now, but it'll send them, like it did us for the jazz and the funk, of course, it'll send them on a journey to look for the original pieces.
All right. Beezo, what you say?
Well, I fall squarely on the side of I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. And my two reasons, I mean, I see, let's put it this way, I see where you're coming from, everyone, the better side of it, like what it could turn into. Now, I'll be probably honest also, I didn't even hear about the Elzmatic, whatever it's called, until tonight. You know what I mean? The two that I'm most familiar with in in terms of remakes is just songs. When Snoop did Lottie Dottie, and then the cat Lupe Fiasco did they reminisce over you over, but he just used the whole beat. He didn't use the rhymes the same or whatever. But my problem with it is twofold. For one, I do think it is a form of laziness. I look at it like you see in the movie business now, they doing remixes of like Poseidon and stuff like that. Or, what I mean? It's like you're running out of ideas, so you got to go regurgitate and pretty up and Photoshop some old stuff and put it out as new. And what you said about sampling, like, yeah, this is a sampling music. It's based on samples, and that becomes the excuse, the built-in excuse, I think, because, and I say that specifically about the Lupe joint because when that joint came out, being for the Vernon and knowing the cat Troy and what it meant to Pete and to have and to a lot of cats from the Vernon, it made a lot of us angry. It made a lot of us angry. I know cats that was like, they wanted to go get Lupe or whatever. They wanted to, find him somewhere and do some harm to the cat because that's how real it was to them. That one song. But I think the biggest issue is that, and it's a sad commentary on hip hop and the fans, that I think that what you're saying there about what the positive could be, I think that would hold true in a lot of other genres of music. But unfortunately, in this hip hop genre, the fans, there's not enough fans who look that deep into it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because again, like what you said about, what made us want to dig for jazz and funk and soul and blah, blah, blah. We also were the types that we hear a verse and be like, oh, like we could sit here and talk about a verse, back in the day. We chop it up for an hour just about a line when Nas said, calling the cops to Jakes or represent. I remember having a whole conversation with 4 or 5 cats on how ill that was he did that. These dudes don't do that nowadays, And unfortunately for hip hop, I don't think the audience is educated enough. When I say educated, I'm not speaking, school-wise, IQ level. I'm just talking about in terms of the music, where one, I think they're lazy, and I'll play a part in that too. Whether it's because our generation contributed to that laziness, we didn't make a point of educating the younger people of what sampling. Maybe not us here, but I think our generation, the hip hop heads, didn't do a good job. And then when Puff came and started doing cover songs and remixes, it was basically just cover songs. People just took it as, oh, it's a sample. No, it's not. There's a difference. There's a difference between taking a whole original song and getting an instrumental and just rhyming over that, to taking a piece of a song, a piece of that song, chopping it up, putting a beat underneath it, laying it with a bass line and this and that, whatever.
Can I cut into that one point just real fast? Is that I want to add to your argument is, you're right. It's this what they're doing is not sampling. Right. It's doing covers. Like these projects, Illmatic and
it's just doing cover songs.
It's not
see, that's my thing. We know that.
Yeah, it's
we know that. And I had a conversation when Lupe's joint dropped. I had a back and forth with this chick that works in MTV on Twitter, and that was some excuse. Oh, but it's hip hop, it's sampling, the music is based on sampling. And I had to tell like, now hold. Understand what sampling is. If somebody, when you're walking through the mall and a dude is standing there with a plate of the teriyaki chicken, that's just a sample. You're getting one little snippet, a bite of it. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same as going and buying the whole tray and an entree with the rice and the sauce and all that. That's a whole different deal than that little piece of chicken you got. But somehow you could take that one piece of chicken on a stick and turn it into a whole meal. That's what real hip hop is doing. You know what I'm saying? What these cats are doing is taking that basically that whole entree, putting it on a plate, putting some garnish on it, and like, here you go. Look what I made for you. You know what I'm saying? It's like they basically took that cat's meal and giving it to you and presented it like it's their own. And again, I think a lot of it, if we were talking about different genres perhaps, but I'll just stick to hip hop because that's, my so-called, level of expertise. But unfortunately, man, the hip hop audience, whether it's to the younger generation, and it's not just that, it's our generation too, there's too many that are uneducated in the history of the making of the music and how it's created, and they literally don't see any difference between what Puffy was doing and what a Primo or Pete or Jay Dilla and them cats do with sampling. Like when Snoop, and my thing, I remember having a conversation with Roots, Kill, when Snoop did the Lottie Dottie joint. And we both had the same opinion, me and Roots, and we were like, yo, 10, 20 years from now, there's going to be cats that know Snoop and will actually not know any better if they like that song and think that that was Snoop's song, perhaps. You know what I'm saying? If they're not educated enough on the history of the music, there's some who are going to think that Snoop did Lottie Dottie. You know what I'm saying? And they're not going to know about Slick Rick.
And I think the ill thing about that is because when the Snoop joint dropped, I remember listening to it going back to Morgan, and it kind of struck me like, yo, this dude is using.
And he was big. He was already big.
Right.
That's the difference too between that and what these other cats is. That was Matic. These cats are lower tier artists. Right. Snoop was already the big, big dog. And
I throw something.
Let me just say this though, real quick. That one example of you giving an ode that I did love and respect tremendously was Nas's "Build and Destroy," when he was rhyming in a flow like Slick Rick, and at the end of the joint, he said, you know what I'm saying, he called himself the ruler, it's like, but next to Rick, he said, next to my man Rick, I'm the ruler. So he's letting you know, this ain't my style, this is Slick Rick's style, you know what I'm saying? But it was just the cadence, the flow, it wasn't a whole song. That to me is how you show some ode and respect. Jay will probably tell you that's what he's doing when he spits a line or two from Biggie. But doing a whole song and then a whole album, I'm not with that, man. I'm not with that, yo.
What you gonna say, Al?
Put this in there. Did we feel the same way when Buck did he did the Rakim joint? Remember the Rakim joint Buckshot did?
The joint he did for Funkmaster Flex joint, the I Ain't No Joke joint?
Yeah. Did we feel the same way about that?
I didn't like that either.
Well, let me say this. I think the thing is that I guess for me, I'm a root person. I'm like, where did this come from? Where did this, because Snoop did it, and then it really wasn't done again for a while. Right. I think Snoop did it, and I think most people who like Doggy Style will probably agree that they always skip over that song. I don't know too many people who talk about Doggy Style and Lottie Dottie comes up as one of these joints. So it's that was almost like a stone's throw in the ocean. Like that's just something that just happened. You know what I mean? And when Buck did it with I Ain't No Joke, I have to be honest with you, because when it first came out, I don't think I had a problem with it. I don't think I had a problem with it. So to answer that question, but to go to the Elzhi joint, like you said, when I first heard about it, I was like, yo, this is whack. Like, you can't redo a classic album. You know what I mean? It's almost like somebody trying to sing a Luther song. Like, you can't sing it better than Luther. Just leave it be. Like, you can't sing it better than Patty. Just leave it be. I never understood why 112 or cats like that would try to redo a Luther song. Like, dog, are you serious? Like, just leave it be. But with the Elzhi joint, I think I like the Elzhi joint more because of the band. You know what I mean? Because he had a live band, and I think that was what pulled me in, was that he got this band of white dudes from Detroit to basically replay all the beats to Illmatic damn near perfectly, like we was talking the other night. One of them joints, I think the One Love, is like 14 minutes. It's just beautiful music. Like, I take the instrumental of it more than anything. So I think that's why Illmatic kind of got a pass from me, because it was more so the music was just so great. And I was more amazed that this band was able to flawlessly replay all these.
Let me ask you something. Because my thing is, now again, I'll be honest with everybody, I never heard it. I didn't even know about it until y'all mentioned it. But if it's like, I feel like that's dope. You get a live band, but it's like, damn, dog, if you going that far with the creativity, then just do a whole album of your shit with that live band. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
But then why waste your time doing Illmatic? Do your own shit, so you ain't got to worry about nobody like me complaining, because you just got some hot shits with a live band, and I'm gonna rock with it. You know what I'm saying?
I got a couple different things I'm throwing there. One, I think that the Elzhi joint, it's because there's always another one to compare it to. When the dude Miguel Atwood Ferguson did, he did the Jay Dilla thing. He did the same thing. He got the live band together, and they did Sweet for My Dukes.
Right.
Did the whole Jay Dilla with the live band, and the shit was banging. It's a banging little EP compilation joint, which is the same.
Was it the music that was banging because they had the live band, or was it that the whole concept with the rhymes and everything that made it dope?
There was no rhymes. It was just instrumentals.
Oh, that's
To me, that's different. To me, that's like,
yeah, that's what I say. That's a little different.
I'm gonna get a live band.
If you an MC, that means you're an MC. So I can't do that same idea because I'm an MC. Like, so say if I love the Miguel Atwell Ferguson thing, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to bring in a live band and replay one of these dope albums that I loved. But I'm an MC, so only thing I'm not gonna just stand there. Of course, I'm a rhymer.
Well, can you rhyme? And I guess maybe this is my thing is, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, and it's one of those, I guess, is one of them catch-22s about hip hop, you know, or even in a relationship where it's like women can do some things and men can do, you know, men can sleep with 800 women and it's all good. Women sleep with 3 guys and she's a hoe. I guess as an MC, yeah, you just get shortchanged because,
that's good.
you know, I don't want you, even with Illmatic or even with this, you know, the joint with Skyzoo, they'll start the verse off the way Jay did, and then he'll go into his own rhymes, you know, the same way with, you know, Elzhi. He'll change New York state of mind to Detroit state of mind, and they're dope lyrics, but for me, it's just, like, for me, you just don't do that. You know, like, and maybe it's because I'm old or something, but it's like, yo, you just don't do that. Like, you don't take another man's, like, to me, that just couldn't happen. And I mean, I understand that years have passed.
Another point. I'm bringing up another.
Hold tight. But hold tight. What I'm saying is that maybe it's because years and a lot of years have to pass before you can do a tribute. But all I know is growing up on hip hop, like, yo, Light came out with Beat Fighter because Herbie used the drums from Top Billin' for Antoinette's I Got an Attitude. And it was like, yo, this dude got, I mean, we started calling people Herbs because of Herbie Love. Like, that's the hip hop that I grew up on. You didn't even steal a person's beat, but now you're stealing half my rhymes. You're stealing my beats, and you're labeling it as an ode. And I mean, you have some people who, one of my points I was going to bring up is in XXL magazine. They had the little section called, like, I think Who Borrowed That, because it became this new phenomenon that in rap we would use a Slick Rick verse here, and we would use a Rakim verse there, and like you said, Beezo, MCs would say, oh, I'm just paying respect, but then you have a lot of people who feel like Jay isn't paying respect to Biggie. You know, if you want to pay respect, you know, hell, I'll always miss Big Papa. You ain't got to keep biting the dude's lyrics. This to the point that it was one Jay song that he was singing, and I totally forgot that it was a Biggie verse because I got so used to Jay saying it. So I think it's like you said, Beezo, even for me being educated, it's like, oh, damn, I forgot Biggie did say that. You know, because Jay almost made it his. So, my bad, Evan. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I'm going to be honest, not saying that I necessarily agree with it, but I gotta look at the truth. I think we might be being a little bit biased because we didn't really have an issue when Buckshot did it. And then on top of that...
Oh, I did.
No, Beezo
did. But when we look at it, did we also have an issue with Pete Rock? Because Pete Rock did it.
With the beat,
the man you see on the place to be. I went to John Mecca High to get that. What song was that? And they redid
Down with the King.
Down with the King, the remix.
Oh, he was on the song with
Run DMC.
That's a little.
I mean, you know,
didn't rhyme though, but yeah, you're right.
He was on the song with Run. But again, and if you
think that was apropos for the moment, you know what I'm saying?
And I don't really have a huge problem with MCs when they do that. But Jay, that's just become his MO. Like, I'm always going to do this.
Yeah, I'm confused about something though. Different though. I'm confused about something. The joint you're talking about. So it was an MC cat that did a Dilla tribute with no lyrics. There was no rhyming on it. It was just music.
No. The dude, Miguel Edward Ferguson, he's a composer. So he's a composer, and he got a bunch of musicians together, and they redid Sweet for My Dukes with a whole like orchestra.
I mean, you know what I see that as? If you go to a lot of R&B concerts, like, you know, I took the wife from Valentine's Day to go see Chrisette Michelle, whatever her name is, and Anthony Hamilton. And at one point, Anthony Hamilton with the band and the backup singers, and it was an incredible show. But as a way of getting an audience more involved, they did Parliament Funkadelic. I forget the name of the song. It's not the name, but it's like that part side, swing down, sweet chariot spot, let me, and it's like it started a whole chant. And you know, you would see that over the years. You go to a lot of R&B shows, at least back in the day, I haven't been to. That was the most recent one I've been to, other than Raphael Sadiq. But a lot of times, cats would do an old, another artist, an older artist's song, you know what I'm saying, as a way of drawing the audience in. So it kind of sounds like what you're saying that cat did. It's kind of the same thing, but he did it as an album as opposed to doing it in a show. I mean, something like that, at least it shows a level of creativity. But when you take something that's already been done, what's the difference between doing that and taking Illmatic, doing over A Reasonable Doubt, taking all the top hip-hop albums ever and doing them over, to Puffy taking the top classics that we grew up in at barbecues and listening to our mother's crib or whatever, and just doing cover versions of those songs with rhymes on them? Well, what's really the difference?
I feel like with Puffy, it was his thing was he was trying to take it as if the way that we use samples. And he took it as the way that we use samples and try to make it his song, which was like, that's whack. I mean, I gotta
call himself the king. We invented the remix.
Yeah, which is crazy. What? But I gotta give it to these guys because they're actually they're putting the names of what these actual albums and titles were. And I mean, I have to, I'm going to throw this in there too. Are we being a little bit too hard on hip hop? Because it's a billion R&B artists that'll sing another R&B artist's song who is in their same time bracket, in their same time frame. So I mean,
I don't think we're being hard on him. I don't think we're being hard, man. I think that's part of what Kill said, man. And I was thinking about this on my way home. We broached the idea of the show, and I'm like, when you starting something, whatever it is, you're building something from scratch, and when what I'm talking about is hip hop. You have to have, steps that you use. You can't go to step 5 and start the process. You got to start at step 1. But you also have to have parameters. You know that this thing is going to be this wide, this high, this deep, and that, these are the dimensions of it. Where hip hop, people have used the idea and excuse, and I've heard it more recently than ever before in the past few years, when people like Lupe doing his shit or whatever, stuff like that, but it's just this, it's just that, like it's hip hop, it's sampling, and it's like there's no rules. And that's a problem. And again, when you're talking about there's no rules, and then you have an uneducated fan base and following, that's two very dangerous mixes. You know what I'm saying? Where you can just do anything, and then at the same time, people are not cognizant and informed enough to know, well, this is from that, that's from this, so on and so forth. This is 3 of us, and I talking about anybody else, but 3 of us. Me and Kill being producers, Ev, you being the MC, in the era that we came up, again, we talked about it, looking on the back of covers, album covers, and even CD covers, and seeing, contains sample of such and such, and it made you want to listen to, find more music by this original artist. We were educating ourselves because of our love for the music. These fans and these followers of the hip hop, they don't do that, and to say there's no rules, that's a problem, man. And I think that's one of the reasons where we at right now with the music. There needs to be more rules. So I don't think we're being hard on them. I think what we're trying to basically get to is that, there needs to be some rules to this shit, man, and it's not enough.
I mean, I think... Hold on, let me get something in real quick. I think, because I wanted to talk about some of the things you said, I think, and just thinking back on the Buck situation, you know why I don't think I had a problem with it, B? Because it was a mixtape. It was Funkmaster Flex's mixtape. And this was during the days when it was for his mixtape album. Flex used to come out with mixtape albums, and keep in mind, back in the day, mixtapes were you rhyming over other people's beats.
Well, both of these joints was mixtapes too. The Elzhi joint is a mixtape.
I mean, but what I mean by it is that
old style mixtapes,
the whole type, but they're not Elzhi is classifying this as an album, and it's just the difference between the word mixtape. Mixtape 20 years ago was people rhyming over other people's beats. It wasn't no original music. When I went out and brought a doo-wop, the Ballad Squad wasn't doing anything over original beats. They were rhyming over Meph's Bring the Pain or whatever. So that's when Buck was done, it was done in that era of mixtapes. Now, mixtapes in 2013.
Well, that's not all the way true either. Because, during that time, during the mixtape with your SNS or whoever, sometimes they would premiere new material from cats through that mixtape source as well.
I mean, yeah, they would premiere new material, but whenever MCs rhymed, I'm talking about when MCs rhymed. I mean, if we look at what a mixtape was back in the day.
It's just, right. They fit no side of it.
Right, so you were rhyming over other people's beats. A mixtape now in 2013 is basically a free album. You're getting all original music. You're getting all new things. So no matter how it's classified on like Dat Piff or whatever like that, to me, this Old to Reasonable Doubt and Elzhi's Illmatic are albums. Buck was, and I think that was the thing, because I'm sitting here really racking my brain, like, why wasn't I upset about Buck? And I'm like, right, that was for that Funkmaster Flex mixtape. It was a whole rack of people rhyming over different stuff. Huh?
Why was you upset with Snoop?
Why was I upset with Snoop? Because I think that was the first time I had ever heard somebody redoing a hip hop song on your album. Like, this is your album. This is Dre is doing production on your album. And I think it was the shock of, I never heard this before. Like, I've never seen an artist on their album redo an entire hip hop song, and it was whack on top of that. Like, it was just whack. It wasn't even like oh snap, he redid Lottie Dottie and had Dougie Fresh come in and do the beatbox, and had Slick Rick kind of come in and them go back and forth with it. It's almost like,
didn't De La do that though? Huh? Didn't De La do that on Stakes Is High? Didn't they do an old school hip hop track?
To be honest, I'm not sure. But that's what I mean. And then it's chime on your point about R&B music, that, you know, people will do cover songs, and I think that's the key point. They'll do cover songs. I've never seen Beyonce say, I'm gonna do an old Anita Baker and redo Rapture. Well, I would just redo the whole album and just sing Rapture, Sweet Love, and you know, everything like that for a whole album. Like, even in R&B, you don't do that. You know what I mean? So I just think that, I don't know if we're being too hard. If I'm getting into films, if I want to do an ode to Spike Lee, you know what I may do? I may bite the way he pans the person just walking into the camera. I'm not going to redo Do the Right Thing in 2013 in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. Like, I'm not going to be like, okay, well, not Radio Raheem. We got
the South Side of DC.
Like, I'm not going to redo the whole movie damn near verbatim as an ode to Spike Lee.
Yeah, that's just the same thing. I might as well go see Do the Right Thing at that point.
Let me do this, and right now I just like,
I know.
Like the controversy right now, but you being a comic book head,
right?
You ain't like Batman. How many times they did Batman?
Yo, let me explain something to you about Batman, man. I'm tired of. I'm with Beezo. I'm tired. You know what? I just seen a trailer for another Godzilla. I'm like, we got a new 2013 Godzilla, then we just have like a 97 Godzilla.
So when the dude did, when Dark Knight came out, you was like, oh man, fuck that, because what you call
to be honest with you, B, I didn't even go see the Dark Knight. I didn't even see that movie. I didn't even see it. It wasn't until the second one came out and everybody and their moms was like saying this is better than Scarface that I actually went and saw it. And I'm not really sold on them. I mean, I'm tired of the replay. I'm not big on this new Spider-Man. You killed off Tobey Maguire. Get a new goddamn superhero or something. Like, you got the A-Team movie. You got. I'm tired.
Yeah, see, like that. The superhero stuff, I think that's a different animal, because that's a franchise, and it's, you know, it's just like with Marvel. You know, like you talked about a kill, like, you know, there's different eras where there's different writers and different backstories and storylines and things of that nature, and they'll change it. So I don't mind that stuff so much.
Haters, B, but there has to be, like I said, Ev.
There needs to be rules to this shit, man.
You're not gonna go, Ev, if I sit here and I send you a script that reads damn near verbatim to Do the Right Thing, you're gonna be like, yo, Kill, this sounds a whole lot like Do the Right Thing. You ain't gonna be like, oh, this is dope, yo, that's dope, and then he throws a trash can through, I don't know, what's now in the neighborhood, the Starbucks window, like, no, you gonna be like, yo, this is Do the Right Thing, you know what I mean? Or yo, Ev, I got a new script, it's about this jazz musician who plays saxophone, and at the end he gets beat up because his man is a crackhead, now he can't play no more. You're gonna be like, well, Kill, that's Mo Better Blues, like. So I don't think it's hip hop. I mean, like I said, they don't even do that in R&B. Nobody's gonna take a whole album. Who is gonna be like, yo, I'm gonna redo Thriller? Is even Chris Brown gonna do that? Even Chris Brown isn't gonna do that.
That gets me to the conversation of there are rules. I think the rules are quote unquote unspoken, but there are some rules. You know, certain things you just don't touch. And I don't know if that's been established in hip hop. Like, certain things you just leave alone. Like Reminisce, you should have just left that alone. Yes. And when I heard that, I was like, you should never touch that. That's against the rules. But you know, either you know, or somebody you was in the studio recording with, or somebody you played it for, one of these cats knew that was against the rules. And so to me, I believe there are rules. Whether people are abiding by the rules is another story.
And I think the big piece is like, and the point that I bring up about R&B, even they don't do that. Even they're not going to recreate a whole album in a genre of music where I guess you could kind of say it's legal. Because what me and Beezo are saying is this is illegal in hip hop. You know, there are things that you can't do in hip hop that you can do in any other genre of music. Even in any other genre of music, a young white band is not going to redo Bon Jovi's "Slippery When Wet."
What about in jazz? In jazz?
What happened?
In jazz? There's no jazz remakes?
I mean, I'm not a big jazz head. You would have to tell me. Has somebody?
Well, there is. I should say that there is. I mean, I've seen stuff like that with Cat, but again, yo, that doesn't, because someone else did it doesn't necessarily make it okay, make it right for hip hop. Doesn't make it right, period. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's been done before.
That's the key word you said for hip hop. So
right, but that's what I'm saying though. Like Kill saying, I think that there is
different.
Yes, I think there absolutely needs to be and should be and is different rules that apply to hip hop that don't apply to jazz, that don't apply. And I think the same could be said for jazz. There's rules in jazz that's different for hip hop. I mean, you know, in jazz, your weapon of choice is your instrument. You know what I mean? And like Dizzy Gillespie had the ill sax. I mean, the ill sax. If some next cat came along with the same joint, but his joint's pointing down, it's gonna be like, oh, come on, man, you just biting off a Dizzy with that joint. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you can't do that. No other jazz musician will come out with his horn looking like Dizzy's because they know that's Dizzy's joint. We ain't trying to do that. You know what I'm saying? But in hip hop, it's not like we talking about, oh, this cat performs with the same mic as that cat. No, we talking about this cat taking his work and doing it over. And one point that I want to make in all this is that I think what's changed dramatically in hip hop is, like we just said, other than Snoop and I guess maybe Buck, all of these artists we're talking about that have done these songs, maybe you can say Lupe to some, because he does have a following to some people or whatever. Good for them. But these are not mega artists. They're not mega stars that are doing these remix songs and albums and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? These are, like I said, second, maybe even third tier artists who don't have a big, you know, they have a cult following almost, but not, you know, they're not worldwide and recognized and all that. So them doing that comes across as, you know, well, I'm going to piggyback, I'm going to ride the coattails of the popularity of this album, and I'm going to use that to catapult my name into the conversation. And to me, with that, you know, the equal to that is, Evan, I think this is where we're talking about separating hip-hop from other genres, is how when KRS came out, his claim to fame, his introduction to hip-hop for all of us was dissing MC Shan. You know what I'm saying? That was how he came out, was talking about another dude who had a popular song, you know what I'm saying, and using that beetle, that battle, that beef type of battle slash type of shit with him and Shan to make a name for himself, because that became Chris's calling card.
Was that
you know what I'm saying? But that's how it used to be. So now these cats want to do remix songs instead of, like, you know what? That's why I respected about 50 in the beginning, before he blew, when he did the Dreams of Robin, which was a take off of Biggie's joint, Dreams of Fucking an R&B Bitch. And 50 did the joint Dreams of Robin, an R&B nigga, whatever. He talked about robbing all these cats in the game, to where you had Wu-Tang talking about him, Jay-Z talking about him in a song. And I never forget, in the interview, 50 said he was at a restaurant and Jay walked in. And he's like, at first he was a little nervous, like, you know, what's this cat gonna say? And Jay came up to him, and this is after Jay had already dissed him in the song, saying, I'm about $1, what the fuck is 50 Cent? And 50 said Jay came to him, gave him a pound, was like, yo, I respect that. And kept it moving. And 50 was like, he respected that, like, okay, so he understands what I'm doing with this. Something like that, that's an ill creative way of going about it. Biggie talking about fucking R&B chicks, and that was a dope song. And 50 came out talking about robbing cats in the same vein, using that idea that Big has started. That I'll take over cats just doing, if 50 then came out with his version of Dreams of Fucking an R&B chick and started talking about old 60s and 70s, you know, Sarah Vaughan and those types of singers, just to make it a little different. Nah, it wouldn't fly, man. But I think that's the biggest difference between the hip-hop we came up with and this shit. You want to come out and make a name for yourself, man, come out and step up to the plate and take on Kendrick. Take on one of these new cats. Take on a J. Cole or whoever and straight call them out onto the carpet and let's go toe-to-toe with the verses. But these cats are not lyrical. They can't do that. So what do? All right, I'm going to take a popular album and I'll do it over. That's not dope, man. I'm sorry. That's against the rules of hip-hop.
And I think the thing is too, and I know you're playing devil advocate to some level, but would you go see a movie, like, for instance, I'm like, whatever this Godzilla movie is, and I mean, I'm sitting here looking at this trailer like, again, like, and like you said, Beezo, I feel like it's a level of laziness that, do we not have any good ideas in Hollywood anymore that we got to do? Who said we needed an A-Team movie?
You know what it is, Kill? It's a way. It's a quick money grab, and knowing, well, this worked, so let's just do it again, and let's just, rejigger it and put some Photoshop, some more gloss on it, and some more CGI and put it back out. It's the same thing. Right.
But I think that's the thing, that in having this conversation, I'm finding that when we're saying like these rules are just for hip hop, and I feel like they're not. These rules, I mean, to be honest with you, Spike's new movie, The Odd Boy or Old Boy or whatever it is, that totally flopped at the box office, but even before it came out, people was like, yo, it's just a remake of an old Chinese movie. And that set off enough people like, why is this dude remaking a movie that's kind of, I guess, I'm not big on like Chinese movies if it's not karate, that I guess is kind of already like a cult classic in that. Like, why is Spike redoing that? Like, these are the questions that are coming. So I feel like when we're saying we're being too hard on hip hop, now that I'm talking about it, I don't think anybody else does this. It'd be different if we could sit back and say, Usher redid Off the Wall, when Beyonce redid, Evelyn Champagne King's album. No, I mean, they may do a cover song here and there, and maybe eventually I could have get to a point where I don't know if I would have, where like you just do one lottie-dottie, and I'm like, all right, but bring somebody in. And I think one of the things that, and I always respected Alicia Keys for this, because a lot of cats never did this. When Alicia Keys on her second album, she redid Last Night in the Pips, If I Was Your Woman, and she did it over the Warning beat. And she went out and she got Easy Mo B to produce it. And I respected her for that, because she easily could have just told her engineer, just loop it up.
Loop it, man.
You know what I mean? And I really respected the fact that she went out and she put some money in Easy Mo B's pocket and had him remake the beat. Like, had him come in with his equipment and make the beat like in the studio, whereas like you'd have Jennifer Lopez with the Jenny from the Block, you had the track masters come in and loop up the Beat Nuts Watch Out Now. It's like, why don't you put that J-Lo money in Corona's pocket, in Corona Queen's pocket?
Fellow Hispanic.
Throw this in there. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I'll just say that these aren't my personal opinions, but I like to keep the conversation interesting. But there's certain points that I still want to throw into the mix. And when you bring up the J-Lo thing, there's a lot of respect I don't have for J-Lo, because even though she did that one song, there's so many songs that she actually have straight took.
Hold on, you mean J-Lo or Alicia Keys?
I'm sorry, Alicia Keys. She straight took the melody from old '70s songs, not just the chord structure, but even the actual like the tonality, the lyric melody itself, and recreated these songs, because number one, there's nothing new under the sun. Number two, people like stuff that their ears are already accustomed to. And I think, Alicia Keys has done that to a certain extent. Of course, Puffy came in and did it to a bigger extent. And you got these other cats that are basically monopolizing off of that idea times 10. So,
right. Well, let me say this. I think one of the first things, when you saying Alicia's taking stuff from the 70s, that's what you said, right? I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
70s. This kind of comes into another question, and it kind of, how we do on the writer's bench, sometimes stuff pulls us away. But I was watching this producer documentary, and like 88 Keys was saying like he doesn't like loops, and he was saying that Just Blaze kind of taught him like, yo, sometimes you just got to let a loop live. Like, you don't have to do surgery on it. And I kind of feel like that's almost what I'm hearing, is that, and this is a question for Beezo, both of you guys, especially Beezo as a producer. Is there anything wrong with the loop? Because I felt like what Puff was doing was Puff was taking songs, and I don't know, again, if there's like a certain year, like we was like, you got to sample from the 70s and not the 80s, because I always tell people, if you probably name your top 5 hip hop songs, they're probably all loops. You know what I mean? It's not going to be too much chopping up stuff. Like even back in the day, like I guess around the 90s, when cats really started coming out with those Pete Treat records, and it would be like all the samples that Pete Rock used to use stuff, and they had a Tribe series, and with Pete you could put the record on and you'd be like, oh, that's reminiscent. You put the record on, you'd be like, oh, that's that's 1 in a million. You put the record on, you'd hear. It's not too many producers outside of Primo where I played the the milk crate for somebody, and they're like, I don't hear it. And I'm like, okay, let me play it again. Let me play it again. So the majority of our favorite hip-hop songs are loops. So is there anything wrong with Alicia Keys taking, like you said, from the 70s?
That's my whole argument. That's my whole argument. Because now we get into this idea of how much is too much. So, you know, if we're talking about a sample, we're talking about a loop. A loop is just, you know, a little longer than a sample. And
well, it depends, though, too. It depends on the length of the loop. I mean, not to get too...
That's what I'm saying. We're talking about time structure. So it's a question of, well, how much is too much? And then my thing is, I mean, it goes to my argument is, there's a thin line to this argument that we're having right now. There's a very thin line because if you talk about, if we're going back, again, I hate to regurgitate, but if we're going back into time structure again, then if I'm talking about Alicia Keys, I'm not just talking about a 4 minute, 5 minute, 4 second, 5 second, 6 second type thing. I'm talking about, yo, you're taking that melody from whatever song that was and taking those words out, putting your words in because it's a popular song. It has a popular melody. We're gonna groove to it because we remember the melody, even if we don't know what the lyrics that you're saying is something new. So it's going to be introduced as a new song to us. But actually, all you did was go and repackage something old.
I think that is the same thing. I think it is. And what you in terms of your argument, I think I would equate what you're saying Alicia Keys is doing there to the same thing I'm saying about, you know, these cats redoing the song. Right. I mean, the one thing, you know, I don't have a problem with the loop. I mean, you know, it's like Kill said. I mean, shit, some of my favorite hip hop songs, albums, artists, 90% of that shit is based on loops. But I think the best way to look at it is, I think really the legal system is the ones that define it, where the line of delineation is, in that if you use a sample, number one, as I've said in the past, if you take a vocal sample, anybody, even a James Brown saying hot, you got to pay him for that because you are literally taking that man's voice or whatever and duplicating it. But if you take any more than 2 bars of a song, original song, you automatically have to pay for that shit. Sometimes you don't. If you chop it, you got to, if you take 4 bars from some melody, you got to send something that original artist way, unless you just trying to slide it through, you know what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong, there's times where cats will sample some shit, loop it, and put it out, but they've kind of EQ'd it and mixed it in a way that they don't have to pay the original artist.
Are you talking about sampling or are you talking about replaying?
Sampling. When you sample something, when you like, say I do an album, the times I've done some shit.
It's not 2 bars, it's anything.
Oh no. Now I mean, unless it changed recently, but I know. We tried to get sample clearance. That's what the issue was. Like, you know, there were certain samples that we didn't have to clear because it was just one sound or whatever. It was just one particular sound. But if it was what they like, they say you see on the back of an album cover, an interpolation of the original song, where you're taking a part of the melody. You're taking a part of the original sound and you're using it for your whole song. You're taking that one melody, even though it's a snippet, even though it's 2 bars or whatever, but if that 2 bars is basically the song in its entirety condensed into 2 bars, and you take that and you put it over here and you make it yours, you got to pay for that, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Bars or 2 notes?
Well, it was 2 bars, and this is just, we talking about sampling.
If that's the case, dude got like crazy for that shit, and that's not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but nobody's had to pay for that shit.
But that's not 2 bars.
Yeah, they had to pay for that shit.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
But remember, like I said though, you gotta understand like what they're saying. Like they'll go get a music, what do they call them? Like somebody graduated from Juilliard. Like I know my man, I ain't gonna mention his name or who the artist was, but he did a song that he was trying to sell to a very popular artist, and the cat basically took it and got his peoples to lay another beat on it, and literally took it from my man's shit. Not even played it over, but took it from the CD that my man gave them and used it, and just threw some drums on their own drums under the shit that my man did. And when my man had to go sue them, you know, one of the things that he had to go get is, I forget what the actual term is, man, but it's like this cat that's graduated from Juilliard, and this cat took what my man did and this other artist who robbed him for the shit and listened to the 2 to determine, okay, if the sounds are similar. And what he based it on was that my man used literally the sound of a camera shutter. He used that in the song, in certain parts of his song, and when the cat Vic his shit, they did the same thing with the same time, and it was like that one thing that this cat did is what identified that, okay, this was, yes, he stole this shit. This was his intellectual property that he used without permission. So it doesn't mean it's like it's very gray. But I know, again, from my own experience of having paperwork in front of me and trying to clear a sample before you can put the shit out, that's what we were told by a lawyer, that, yo, if it's anything more than 2 bars, think about this, so you got to pay for it. If you take more than 2 bars, you got to pay for it. Now, that's not to say, I'm not saying that if you only take 2, you're not going to have to pay for that. No. Yeah, if you take 2 bars and it's like dum 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 dum, well, you know this is that, this is their song, because that's how that song starts. Your song starts the exact same way the original song starts, with just that bass line. You got to pay for that. Even if you got somebody to come in and play it over on a bass, it's still, you took an interpolation of their original recording and used it to create your song, so you got to pay for that. You know what I'm saying?
And
so
keep in mind,
a gray area.
And keep in mind with this, when dealing with hip hop, why did we probably, well, for me, I think the reason why I think others said, yo, what Puff is doing isn't hip hop, was because he was taking songs that we knew. Like, he was taking Upside Down by Diana Ross. He was taking I'm Coming Out by Diana Ross. He was taking songs that we knew. But look at it like this. I know a lot of our parents didn't like hip hop because they said we were stealing. See, when I heard Come Clean, I didn't know, oh, that's Vic Juris. Right? I didn't know that off the top, but maybe my mom did, because she's a jazz musician. And that's why so many of our parents may have not have had respect for hip hop, because when I heard, I don't know, Strictly Business, I didn't know, oh, that's Eric Clapton's I Shot the Sheriff. But our parents did. And that's why a lot of our parents and older people didn't respect hip hop, because it was like, y'all are stealing. But we didn't know it. We didn't know all the samples on Strictly Business. Hell, I'm 39 and I'm still finding out samples of hip hop music that we grew up on. So that's the reason why we didn't like Puff, because it was like, oh, I know that song. And it literally was like, felt like if we knew it, then that wasn't hip hop.
I'll just say this though, in terms of Puff, for me and like cats my age, growing up, what we didn't like, what I personally didn't like, and a few cats like Shy, I know we would talk about it, me and Shy and Roots and a few other cats, and our problem with it was that when you think back to like that time in hip hop, a lot of the samples was like, we had finally gotten as far away from everybody sampling James Brown or Parliament Funkadelic, and then it went to everybody sampling jazz music. And then when Pete came in, Pete was taking jazz and soul and funk and using all three, and then the music kind of opened up in terms of the type of samples that cats was using. The artists they were going to, Al Green, and then a cats who sounded like Al Green, Sal Johnson, and what's her name? Cat like Wu-Tang used a lot of, I forget her name now. After the Laughter Comes the Tears, I can't remember her name, but artists like that sounded like Al Green. And I'm sure when Al was doing this thing, he probably heard Sal Johnson and some of these other artists were like, yo, they sound just like me. Even if they're using his band, which a lot of them were doing, they sound just like Al Green. But I think what happened with Puff is that, and again, I think it's Puff being intelligent enough to recognize the shit that he saw, like, yo, there's no rules to this shit. These cats don't know no better. You know what I'm saying? I can just take this song, and this is a popular song that those were pop songs in a lot of its, a lot of ways that Puffy was taking. They weren't funk and jazz and soul music that a lot of other cats were doing. They were pop songs that had been popular in the 80s that hit the pop charts and were big on the pop charts. So it would be the equivalent to somebody 10, 20 years from now taking a Lady Gaga song or a Nicki Minaj song, them pop artists, or Justin Timberlake song, and, just taking their vocals off and basically using the same track, the instrumental version, and rhyming over this shit. That's the problem I always had with what Puff did, man. That he saw basically an opportunity that, yo, there's no rules to this shit, and even the rules, like the the non-written rules, you know what I'm saying, that they there, but we may not have written them down or talked about them in detail. He knew well enough that, yo, who cares? I'm gonna be making so much money off of this shit because I know, because like you just said, Kill, our parents knew these songs. We knew the songs because we grew up on them, running around in barbecues and cookouts, and it was on the radio back when we were little kids in our family's houses. So it was like he knew he was going to pull two different generations and age groups into this music. You know what I'm saying? So he just took advantage of the situation.
Well, I'll say this. I like to have kind of my personal opinion is I think Puffy was whack for that. I'm not a fan of cats going and redoing classic albums, but at the same point in time, I like to bring up these other points to the argument because we are coming from a sample-based generation, and we got to think about that because even in saying that, Mary's My Life was probably to me a classic album, but it's a bunch of hits from another time period. It was just a bunch of hits together from another time period. So if I don't bring these other points up, I feel like we're not really having a true conversation. But when it comes to Puffy, I agree. I wasn't definitely not a fan because to me sampling was about. To me, hip hop is about taking something and turning it into something else.
Right. Not taking the same thing and just piggybacking off.
Spitting it right back out and giving you the same thing. And to me, cats like Pete Rock, Premier would take these things and recreate something new and beautiful out of it, as opposed to Puffy just because he can afford the sample. I'm just gonna go and do it and do this popular thing because I know y'all gonna love it, y'all gonna buy it. But it's the music industry, and the music industry is always about making dollars. Unfortunately, hip hop is about artistry, and those don't always go hand in hand.
Yo, Kill, just to piggyback a little bit off what you asked before about in terms of the movies, cats doing a movie over or whatever, like the Spike Lee movie. Well, again, I don't even know the name of it either. But not even with the movie shit. But these albums we're talking about, the Elzmatic and all this other shit, would you pay $20 to go to a club or go to a spot and see these cats perform that shit?
Would I go to a spot?
Yeah, it's more for Ev, because I don't know how y'all feel about the Elzmatic, but
because
you know what I'm saying? Like, never mind the movie, but just those albums.
The Elzhi joint is I would go because of the band. See, it's strictly music for me. Like that literally is the only reason. If it literally was like Elzhi without the band, like he's just
there and it's
no, I wouldn't go. It literally, and that's the thing with Elzhi is like it's literally like I said. After I heard the album, I'm instantly like, who's this band? Let me find out more about. I was more entranced with the band than I actually was with Elzhi and the lyrics. Like I said, I think Elzhi lyrically ripped it. I think the way he pieced it together was dope. But again, I'm just not a big fan. And like I said, this is why I love the bench and talking with y'all is that from this whole conversation, I've realized that not too many art forms are. Marjani. Ev's fiance is a dancer. I'm sure Marjani don't want to do a piece and then 2 years later see somebody else doing the exact same piece. Like, this is an ode to you. Like,
like get paid for that ode.
Take one of my moves, but don't just bite my whole piece that I just spent all time working on. So again, like when and Ev, I loved your argument of just being devil's advocate, but I don't think we're being too hard on hip hop because from this conversation, I don't know anybody else who does it. I've yet to hear, like you said, maybe with jazz, but I've yet to hear a white group redo Nirvana's album, one of Nirvana's albums. I've yet to hear, somebody redo a Kiss album or somebody redo a Bobby Brown album or you can see these cats, the Ushers and the Chris Browns, you can see the influence that Michael Jackson may have had on them, but they're not going out redoing Off the Wall. You can see the influence that the Jackson 5 had on New Edition, but New Edition didn't remake a whole entire Jackson 5 album. So I think that it's great that people want to pay tribute. People want to say, hey, this is one of my favorite artists. And I think Beezo brought up a great point with what Nas did. If you want to try to, emulate somebody's flow and then say, hey, this is dope. Or like I said with Slick Rick, bring Slick into the studio. Like that's what Snoop could have done to kind of maybe bring me in a little bit more into it. But for me, that's just, I can't take you just redoing because when is it going to stop? And that's when I saw the J joint. That was my big question. Okay, next year, who's going to do big?
Yeah,
who's going to do
big? Where does it end? Where does it end?
Well, let me answer that. Let me jump on that on that question too that Beezo gave. I personally would go and spend $20 to see a live orchestra perform some of these joints. Only because me being a soundhead, I think
Well, I'm talking about these particular. About those albums in particular.
Speak for my Dukes, I would go see that perform live with the live orchestra and even the Illmatic joint because it's a live orchestra. It's not even a band. It's like a live orchestra. So it gives it a different type of sound quality. So yeah, I would definitely go see.
No, I feel you on that, because I mean, I saw.
You'd be going for the band.
I'd be going, right. That's my point.
Elzhi was at SOBs
by himself.
On the turntables.
Yeah, just the mic. Yeah, and it's like, I saw CL perform a few years back, at SOBs in Manhattan, and he did the Reminisce, and he had a live band, and to hear the 3-horn section do the intro and the horns for not just they Reminisce, but the straighten it out. When they just straighten it out, the whole joint, it was like, everybody was quiet, because it was just like, wow, this is absolutely incredible listening to this shit. But my thing is, it's like, dog, you did all this, you got a band, you rewrote shit, you know what I'm saying? Talking about the Elzhi cat, I'm specifically talking about that one, especially since I never heard it, but just going off of what y'all said, because I'm like, and listening to y'all, and y'all talking about how dope it sounded, the concept, and I'm thinking to myself, but damn, if it's you going to the show because the band, okay, then that means that the music was dope and it sounded good hearing a live band do it, so you'd be interested to see it acoustically in person. Okay, and you telling me that the way he flipped it, using the songs and this and that, and then even instead of Illmatic is Elsmatic. So it's like, fam, you did all this creativity, then why not just do your own whole album, your own material with the same shit, with the band and all that? It's like, because I think it would be a whole different conversation about that cat, in terms of, that would be some groundbreaking shit that an official hip-hop artist that worked with one of the greatest hip-hop producers in Jay Dilla is doing an album, a whole album with a live band, and it's dope. That shit would be some groundbreaking shit, because, I mean, think about, like, when Jay-Z did Unplugged and Alicia Keys did Unplugged, and, like, on Alicia Keys' Unplugged album, she had songs that she didn't put on, a couple that wasn't on regular albums, and they were studio songs, and I forget the name of her song, but it was basically an Eddie Kendrick song that she took. And it was dope, and it was the same shit. It sounded like Eddie Kendricks and them was in the studio and did it, but it was all live band, and that shit was dope. And it's one of my favorite Alicia Keys songs. But again, my problem with the Elsmatic shit is, man, if you're going through all those extremes to create some shit, then create your own shit, because that would give you much more. We wouldn't be sitting here discussing him like this. I wouldn't have the reluctance to want to hear it, because I would be eager to hear, like, wow, okay, this some, from what y'all saying, it sounds crazy. I gotta hear this shit.
But I say that with that, I hear where you're coming from, but I guess for me as a listener, the fact that, like I said, I can do without the lyrics. I can really, I don't need to hear the lyrics for the Elzhi joint. But for me as a listener, I'm a digital head. First off the bat, I think there's never going to be another drum like an MP or SP drum, and that's just what it is. So it's not like I'm a big into live music and all like that, but to know some of the banging tracks that I love, to hear them in an orchestrated sound, it's a different experience. So for me, the experience is enough for me to be like, yo, I would like to check that out, to hear what they did to it, to see how it sounds with live instrumentation. It might be kind of dope. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
I'm sure it would.
And I think the thing is with like you said, Beezo, with the piece of laziness, is I think Elzhi took a huge gamble. Because number one, he was, like we said with Snoop, Snoop was the first to do it with a song. Elzhi was the first to do it with the album. And when I first heard he was doing it, I was like, that's whack. Then I heard more like he was using a live band. And then like that intrigued me a little bit. And it was like, okay, because if he didn't use a live band, I was like, well, what are you going to do? What, are you just going to rhyme over the breaks? I don't want to hear that. So it intrigued me. And then I think Elzhi just took a gamble. And really the consensus from what I heard from other hip-hop heads and from websites and blogs is that it was very well done. So I think people kind of saluted him, and like you said, Beezo, that kind of pushed him. Now more people know Elzhi. So I think it was almost used as like a springboard.
Yes.
Right. Like you said, that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you. Like you said, it's like it's a springboard to escalate him. Now more people know his name. It was at a time, Elzhi, for a little background on him for you, be like Slum Village. They broke up, then Elzhi joined, then he left, so he kind of was just out there, and this kind of pushed him more out into the solo artistry.
How old is this joint?
It's probably about a year and a half, maybe 2 years old. Yeah, it's probably about 2 years old. And he just took that gamble. But since I think everybody said, yo, you know what? It was cool. That now has opened up the floodgates for everybody else to say.
What if he had done his own shit with everything you just saying? You don't think that? I'm sure you do, but I mean, how ill would the conversation be about the cat if he did all of this, but it was his own shit?
It wouldn't have got as much.
I don't think it would have got as I don't think it would have got as much pub because the pub was. It was almost like you ever go into something to just. I don't mean to sound like this, like you listen to something just to tear it down. Like I'm gonna listen to this just so I can diss it because this dude is gonna ruin Illmatic. It's like that was the carrot, but that's why I said it was a gamble for him because this could have just went totally bad and it could have just ruined his career. So the carrot was, I'm going to pull you in. It's almost like how somebody will say, like with Miley Cyrus, at the end of the day, you know, if you're talking about me, that's a good thing. Whether it's positive, whether it's negative, my name is in your mouth. So keep in mind, Elzhi's name wouldn't even be in this conversation if he did his own album. And two, I probably wouldn't have liked it because I'm not a big fan of live hip hop albums per se. Like I want to hear the boom bap. If you're coming out with an album, I don't want to hear that you're using a live band in the studio. Now, if you're doing an unplugged, then that's what I want to hear. But I don't want to hear that Kendrick Lamar's going in the studio with a live band to do an album.
You know the reason why you like the unplugged is because you already know what the dirt sounds like.
You know what you're getting. Right.
So I mean, I agree with you 100%. Do your own shit, but I think now because of that, Elzhi, I mean, he has a Kickstarter account right now for a new album he's doing. If I'm not mistaken, he probably like raised all the money. I don't know if he raises that money without this Illmatic. So I just felt like it was for him. It was a huge gamble because this could have. It could have. I mean, if everybody came together and was like, "Yo, that shit was whack. It was the worst. Elzhi's whack." It could have ruined his career, and it did the opposite. So since everybody applauded it, now we got the Skyzoo and the Ant-Man Wonder joint coming up. You know what I mean? And then
I'll just say this thing. What I'd like to see these cats do is, and I know it's been done actually to some level, or maybe a song or two here or there, is, and I'm talking about doing this type of shit with my cousin who's played in bands, and he's a drummer. And you know, I introduced him to an MPC, and he looked at it like, you know, it had 10 heads or some shit. Because he's used to, you know, everything being laid out and being able to use his feet and everything else, whatever. And he sat me down in front of drums, and I'm trying to just loop up a 2-bar loop on the drum with just a basic boom tat, and the shit was like Chinese arithmetic for me. But let me see some cat go in there and with an MP, bring out some ill drums on the MP, like give me Bink in the studio with his MP and the live band, with a live bass, with a live keyboard player. Because then I think... You know
what you would probably dig then? You would probably dig the boy Ski and the Senseis. Because what Ski does, and he does a lot of this in New York, he'll do live shows where he has his machine, drum machine on stage with him, and he has a live band
called... Talking about Ski Beats? Ski?
Yeah, Ski Beats.
Really?
He has a live band with him called the Senseis. And what he does is he'll have stuff where he has his MPC or his machine or whatever he's using at the time.
Yeah, I know he uses a machine a lot now.
Yeah,
I do that. He got that from me. I do that.
He got that from you. But yeah, Ski does a lot of that. Like just YouTube or Google Ski and the Senseis, and you'll see a lot of the stuff that he.
Yeah, I mean that's dope. That's dope because I know what you're saying. I'm with you, Ab and Kill. Like I want to hear that. I mean that's the hip hop we came up. I want to hear that hard, that layered with 2 or 3 kicks and some bottom behind that shit, a little 808 in behind it, underneath it or whatever. That thump on them kicks. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna get all of that necessarily with a live studio drummer, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That, you know, it's not the same. Or how about, you know, a live studio drummer with it on top of an MP? I mean, I've gone to shows, jazz shows, and they've had 2 drummers. You know what I mean? These cats is playing a beat on top of each other to give it more bottom. Shit, do some shit like that. But I mean, even like with this, I'm just trying to think of different ways that it's like, all right, why Illmatic? Why then? Was it the 10-year anniversary of Illmatic? Was, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's obvious and it was nothing but, it was just, yo, this is probably the greatest hip-hop album, so I'm going to use this and I'll do it over with the live band and see where this takes things.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said,
I got a problem with that, man.
It was a huge gamble for dude and it paid off, and I'm with you. I agree because now that it was great.
I mean, I still feel like I like the album. I thought it was interesting.
No, I mean, I do like the album. I do like the album, and this may sound crazy. I like the album, but I don't like the idea of the album, and I don't need anybody else because now what everybody is doing, to some extent, this Ant-Man from Philly, is he's kind of replaying stuff. So
who's that?
the dude I guess who did the production on the Skyzoo joint is Ant-Man Wonder. I think he's out of Philly. So I only listened to some of it today, and first listen I wasn't really taken in by it to keep listening to anything like that. But now the floodgates are open because somebody's gonna have to.
And that's the problem with it, Kill. Right. That's the problem with that. That's the problem with hip hop.
Ready to Die tribute album is coming,
and that's the problem with hip hop. The No Rules
tribute album is coming.
Yeah, man, it's like once one cat did, because Elzhi did it, and he's getting talked about, and he's raising money on Kickstarter. Now you're gonna see these B and C and D level MCs. Oh, shit, let me try that. You know what I mean? And it's like, nah, come on, fam, stop it, y'all, stop it. And that's the danger of it being dope. And now hearing y'all talk about it now, yeah, I want to hear it. But it's like, nah, man, I got to stand on my principles, and like, I'm never going to listen to it. If it comes on the radio, I'm going to turn that shit
listen
off.
To it at least.
I got to take a stand, man.
Yeah, at least listen to the joint, B. But, yo.
Listen to it.
Yo, another dope episode of Live from the Writers Bench. So I think across the bench, I don't know where you stand at.
I don't know where
so much. I don't know.
Look, I'm gonna tell you. I tell you. I don't agree.
Put it this way. Answer this question.
Go ahead.
Do you have a problem with these hip hop remake albums? Do you want to remake? Do you want?
I do have a problem with a hip hop remake album.
But you just like this one in particular.
I like the Elzhi joint. I do like it, but I don't. But you know what? I like it without the verses. I like the fact that it's live instrumentation and they're playing the beats from Illmatic.
So I think at the end of the day, we're both saying the same thing. We like the album more for the music. Because if we really like the album, Beezo's question of, will we spend $20 to go see Elzhi do it live, but with the DJ, we both said no. So obviously, we don't like the album enough to go pay $20.
I'm not into the remake. Just so in case you wasn't sure, I'm not into the remaking the whole album. I think if you're doing tribute songs, that's one thing. I think when Buck did it, I wasn't necessarily mad. I didn't really hear the Snoop joint, so I don't know what that sounds like. But when you do a whole album, I think that's a whole different thing that a whole different world that you're walking into. And I think it's a little lazy. I definitely think it's a little lazy, but I ain't with it.
You know what, to add some real quick?
I would love to know, because I never heard, and Nas is very silent on things like this. I never heard any feedback about how Nas felt about it, which I would love to hear, and I would love to know how Jay feels about this new Skyzoo joint. I would love to hear.
This was just like a mixtape, right? It was for free. It wasn't sold or nothing, right?
I want to actually say I want to say, you know me, I'm a downloading pirate. I think he was selling, like, if you go to Elzhi's website, I think there are physical copies you can buy, and maybe even the download on Bandcamp cost, or the Skyzoo joint is a name your own price on Bandcamp, you know what I mean, type thing. So you can download it with those name your own price. You can download it. I downloaded it for free. I'm not donating no money to you, for redoing an album, but. You know what?
Just real quick, I wanted to add to this was I saw, I'm not even sure when, it was very recently though, Chuck D on Twitter. I'm not even sure where the conversation was coming from, but he mentioned Ice Cube's the beat jacking joint or whatever Ice Cube did back in the day. Right. Give me that beat, fool, whatever. So Sultan Jack move, and he talked about how he loved it. This was Chuck D on Twitter saying how he loved it. He loved the way Ice Cube did it. And his reasoning behind it. Now, Chuck didn't elaborate through further tweets into why he felt that way, but, because they did take a PE track, but the difference, and I think we've talked about this around that time, he was actually working with Hank, with the Shockley boys. So it wasn't that big of a stretch, I think, for him to jack some of those, the PE shit. But, I mean, when I heard that, that's how did y'all feel about that? Because I liked it.
I love Jack.
But again,
that was one of the dopest joints. Ice Cube
was done.
He was down with PE during that time.
Right.
But even in his verse, he was like, even if they down with my crew, I jack.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was a bang.
I like the way he did it too, because again, it's that he was letting you know this is what I'm doing. It's no strings attached. I'm not trying to get airplay because I'm taking songs y'all know. Nah, I'm talking about this way hip hop and cats jacking stuff here and there. So I'm jacking beats, nigga. Give me that beat. I respected that.
I love the joint, and I think just as a wrap up, we all agree we're not with these hip hop tribute albums. As much as I love Brother Ali, I don't need him redoing It Takes a Nation of a Million. to hold us back with live instruments. I don't need that. You know, if anything, what happened?
That's what's happening right now?
No. I'm just saying. I just said Brother Ali because he's like the only political MC out there. So it would make sense that if anybody did it, you know, and that's the sad state of hip hop. When I can say that the successor of Chuck D's microphone is a white, albino, blind MC from Minnesota.
That nigga's blind?
He's legally blind because he has oh God, what does he have?
Cataracts or some shit?
No. Where all his hair is white. What is that? Like everything on him is white.
Oh, he
pigment, like some type of pigmentation.
Yes, he has something.
Oh,
but
Biggie Lagrio, whatever, that Michael Jackson shit.
Yeah, maybe he has that. I don't know. But the moral story is that that's how bad hip hop is when a white Muslim.
But he's not the only one. It's already the Bugger Child.
Right, but a white Muslim MC from Minnesota is the successor to Chuck, is the most political rapper that we have right now. Says a lot about hip hop. But
I don't like Brother Ali, by the way. I just want to throw that out there.
You don't like Brother Ali?
I think he's whack.
Ali is dope, man.
I listened to the album after y'all talked about it. I listened to it after y'all talked about it. We don't gonna segue into some other shit, but
you know what?
Hold on. I gotta say this real quick. I'm sorry. I'll be quick as possible. But Kill, you was getting on. I heard you more conversations me and you had personally had over the phone or whatever. When you kind of dissed my man Bronson, cause saying he sound like Ghost. But my man, I see why y'all like the nigga. Cause as much as y'all love Pharaoh, that nigga sound just like Pharaoh Monch. There was like 3 or 4 songs where I'm like, is this Pharaoh Monch? Brother Ali. No, this he's rhyming just like Pharaoh, son.
Yo, you hear that?
Pharaoh Monch cat.
Brother Ali joint.
I don't hear it all, but I will say this: since we have a controversy, number one, the question is, what y'all thinking about that Buster Q-Tip joint? But number two, y'all still, really, Love Movement is not a banger. Y'all need to stop everything. Y'all need to stop that, man. Y'all need to go back.
Hold tight. Let's hold that for another show. Let's hold that. You gotta push the button at the end of the show. Let's wrap it up. The Writers Bench does not condone hip-hop remakes. You know what I mean? Skyzoo, Elzhi, get at us. Because I want to hear from them. What made you do this? Am I right, Elzhi? Was it a gamble? And I would love to hear from them. I love to hear from Nas and Jay. But another episode live from the Writers Bench. I'm your man, Kill, Beezo and Vic. Good looking as always, fam. YouTube.com live from the bench. Subscribe, like our stuff, leave some comments. We getting better on commenting back to keep the conversation going. So, and then also live from the writersbench.com. Keep it live for another episode next week.